All right. Okay. One sec. All right, I'm going to go off for 1 second. I just want to see, is there an echo? Is there an echo right now, guys? I know I didn't have the sound on, guys. For those of you that just hopped in. Good morning, by the way. So is there an echo? He says speak up. Pay attention. Read up. Okay. Good morning, guys. Just you sound like a robot. Okay. There is an echo. All right, so let me get rid of that. So I'm going to take this sound off real quick. And I think it's because I have two sound sources. So I'm going to get rid of it. If you can't hear me, say you can't hear me. If you can't hear me, we'll move on from there. Ready? 1, 2, goodbye. Okay. Now is there an echo? Is there an echo now? A little echo. Okay, it's all late. It's late. I see you guys are catching up. It's just the beginning out of the way, so we'll get this out of the way, make sure that it's all working appropriately, and move on with the stream. Better. So it's good. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what the hell that is. So good morning, guys. So we have a bunch of people in here right now. Let me go to the little talking screen, and all right, good. So we have what's going on. Sweet Canary, J.E., Manor Cookie Breakfast of Champions. This morning I actually had waffles. I had protein waffles this morning. Looks like we want to dump again. Jake, Fuzzy, John, Pascal, what's going on, pal? WD 40, WD, water displacement. Took him 40 times to get it before it worked. Olympia J, okay. Nam Lulu, JE, okay. WD with the exclamation point again. Noah, Jimmy Trendricks, love the name, man. X Factor. All right, John, what's up, man? Okay, Mitch, boy, Fuzzy. I just want to say hi to everybody. Make sure there's no one. So I'm kind of familiar with a lot of you guys by now. Kind of familiar with you. No sound. It says no sound? Come on. What? All right, so you can hear me. Sweet Canary, it might be no sound on your end, or maybe there's a, what's it called? A bit of a delay. So good morning, guys. So just get it started in a minute or two. You know that I appreciate when you have when you get those likes up. I hate to sort of go over that bullshit, smash the like button in the beginning, but there is a purpose to it. It does help us it does help put us front and center on the YouTube front page, or if you search for crypto, what we're trying to do is gain a presence in that initial search, because ultimately, like we said in the previous streams, we want to be your non-sensational outlet, non-sensational source of crypto market analysis, trading, and investing, education. So there's a few guys out there that really deserve to be, I think, elevated to that stature, right? To being primary leaders on YouTube, because YouTube is just full of garbage. And I hope that we can be one of them. I think there's room for a bunch of other people as well. And as you've heard me mention before, someone who frequently hops in the streams, Crypto Cred is one of them. So there are many spaces for the right people, right? So if you could just smash the like button, I just said it, shit. If you could just hit the like button, that'd be great. And if you're not a subscriber already, you could actually go to the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So I'm going to get away from the screen right now. Okay, you can go to the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. It should be down here near my head. If you highlight around my head, so I can see my mouse is disappearing. If you highlight around my head, there should be a box, and if you highlight over that thumbnail or watermark, you should be able to subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Okay, good stuff. So last week, 2 weeks ago, we started these streams. We're gonna keep them going, obviously, and we're gonna do them more frequently. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna integrate some other timing as well, because these are 9 o'clock in the morning, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I'm sure that there are other people on other parts of the world that maybe would like to be a part of this, or to tune in more often. And the purpose of doing live streams and streams in general, more so just live streams, right? I think one implies the other, is that the information is new. when we do a BlockRoots YouTube video, something that's recorded, you have to edit it. It's a pain in the ass. You got to edit it. You have a few takes because everyone judges themselves. You do a video and you might have flubbed a word, and if you're someone who's like me, you really you have an attention to detail that is a lot of the times a problem, because what happens is you end up never starting. You get a portion halfway through, maybe something you're trying to describe, and maybe you say the wrong word, right? Things that in conversation would just be laughed about and passed over. And when you're recording a video, I think that there's a certain amount of I don't know, a standard that you hold yourself up to, and I suck at recording videos. Josh records videos really well. It's just not my thing. I like talking to people. I like interacting on a live stream. I like the Q&A. And the main point that I was getting to is that when you do a video, it's old information, right? It's not green, unless you're talking about a specific subject. If we titled a video, how to use moving averages, or how to trade trap setups, that kind of stuff can live on forever in terms of relevance moving forward. But if you're doing market analysis, that market analysis can be over or obsolete in a matter of minutes, right? Which makes it difficult to time that, because you might want to do those types of videos during periods of low volatility, or where the market is maybe not, you don't expect that much movement. And again, it's not natural. I'd rather just come onto the stream, cover current conditions, talk some shit, do a Q&A. And what we're seeing right now is what's occurring right now, right? It's not late, and you're here for that. There are people, though, that watch the streams later, and the video at that point might be obsolete. And of course, if there is any asset where this is going to more frequently occur, it's in something like Bitcoin, or it's in something like cryptocurrencies, because they are super volatile. The same can be said with the newsletter. I write the newsletter, and it took us a while to figure out when the appropriate schedule was for the newsletter, and a lot of that came down to the fact that if you're going to write the newsletter on a Wednesday or a Thursday, a weekday, it doesn't really matter. Sometimes you could be writing the newsletter, and as you're writing, something is transpiring that you're talking about maybe setting up. So you're writing, what your idea is for Bitcoin within the next week, and then 20 minutes into the newsletter, that's already changing, right? Situation's already changing, prices already moved. So we like to keep it live. Off topic, but let me say hi to everyone. Off topic, but how's the new M5? New M5 is awesome. The new M5 is awesome right now because I'm getting cold starts, and that's not something I'm used to. So the M5 is absolutely incredible. I've always had BMWs though, so always had BMWs. I've had, I could go back down the list, all the cars I've had. One of my favorite vehicles that it took a while for me to get rid of was an old Jeep Cherokee that I wanted to give to my firstborn, but my wife finally made us throw that away because we weren't even using it. But yeah, the new M5 is awesome. I did have a little bit of I don't think I had buyer's remorse at all. But okay, so let me explain what happened with the M5. And it's not that it happened. I'm not worried. I'm kind of pissed off. So I bought the new M5. It's absolutely fucking awesome. But then I saw the new M4 came out, and they changed the whole front fascia of the car. And I don't know. I just bought it. I just bought a 2021, and I would feel kind of pissed off if they already are changing the body style on everything, and I bought last year's style, right? Kind of stupid, right? It is. It's superficial. But I wanted to have, the brand new beast on the block, and I see the new M4, and it's got the whole front, the front grill piece is completely different. It's a complete overhaul by BMW. So I'm really hoping that they just keep that to the M4. I think the M4 was discontinued at some point, maybe, and then they just brought it back as a new body style. I don't know. Whatever. I like to think that the awesome part about the M5 is it's a sedan. Because I was thinking, I don't have any kids yet, but between all of our vehicles, I wanted something that I was kind of a toss up. Do I want to buy like a ridiculous sports car? Or do I want to buy like a Porsche? Or you could go down the list, but the M5 is kind of like it's like a family vehicle still, if that's the way to put it, because it has 4 doors, right? It's got 5 seats, 4 doors, so satisfies that. Yeah. But okay, first time on the stream, strictly crypto, or do you trade index futures? Okay, so I used to trade index futures, but I don't actively trade index futures now. I've talked about this in the stream going back for a while now. I've mainly focused on BTC. Index futures, things like equity index futures. Let's see, I used to trade crude oil. Those things just don't have a place right now. I primarily focus on BTC, and for me to get involved, even things like alts. For those of you that have been following me for a really long time, you know that is sort of a little bit outside of my comfort zone right there. And it's not that I'm uncomfortable trading them. It's just that I think, and this is something that I've always said for a really long time, is that you really benefit from focusing on one particular asset. It's sort of like you're in this dance and you're getting very used to the rhythm and the cadence of that asset. And that's how I've been with BTC for a really long time. And when it comes to traditional markets now, I just passively index. So, all right. John Boss Walhoff, off topic. That was you. Okay, what's going on, Kilgore? What's going on, pal? You'll still get plenty of racing awards even though it's a sedan. Yeah. Nah, not a Corvette fan. The new Corvette's pretty cool, but I don't know. I'm not really a Corvette fan. I'd rather a classic Corvette. I would love to have like a, old school Monte Carlo. Yesterday I saw, and we'll get into the stream right after this, guys, but I like to shoot the shit at the beginning. I saw an old school Monte Carlo yesterday that was just like, perfect. Every single thing about it was just pristine. And I was like, damn, I need a classic car too. So, but right now my wife and I are in the middle of, kind of building our dream home. So, that needs to be taking place. That needs to take place first. But in the garage, so all this, there's a piece of property that we're going to be buying, and it's close to where we are now. But we're going to completely demolish the property and put a pretty sick, we'll call it a compound on it. And I want to have a 3-car garage, so I'm going to need something nice to put in there. And also, the garage it's going to have a lift, so it goes into the ground rather than go like up to the ceiling. So it's pretty cool. So it also allows you to it's one of the garages. So one of the garages allows you to go in through the house to go under the garage, and then rather than a solid floor for that portion, there is like the same floor that you would find at a mechanic shop where you could get under the car, change your own oil, all that stuff. Not completely necessary. These days they make cars so that you can't mess with them yourself. It's kind of crazy because back in the day, I had cars that when I was a kid, I could stick my hands in it and do everything that I pretty much needed to do besides, swap out the engine and the transmission. But everything was pretty, if you didn't know how to do it, you could ask someone to come over and help, and you had friends who knew how to fix cars, and talking like Hondas and those little rice rockets. But these days you open up a car hood and it's like it's a computer. So, and part of that is that they don't want you to be able to fix your own cars, right? Okay. Yeah, my dad had a Monte Carlo back in the day, and his brother crashed it. So he totaled it the first day he got it. So that must have been back in the 70s. All right. So I think we have we got a bunch of people in here. We have a decent amount of likes. I always wish I could get the likes up. I feel like, hey, if you're in here, just smash the damn like button. If I see that we have half the amount of likes as we have the amount of people, then it's like you guys are just lazy. I appreciate all the likes that we do have right now. Okay, so let's take a look at BTC. In the stream, I don't want to get too off topic. In the other streams, I tend to, the streams are new, so we're trying to find, I guess, a certain balance in the streams between your market updates that are news related, fundamental related, what's going on in the big picture, to also getting to what everyone is interested in, which is price action and the actual chart. And sometimes, I'll start the stream and I'll get like an hour into it and be like, fuck, excuse me. From New York, whatever. And I'll get like an hour into the stream and I'll think, damn, I never even got to, I wanted to get to the bulk of this. And now I'm like spent, because you get, same way you get like Zoom fatigue, you get, stream fatigue too. So in this video, not going to really talk about much on the fundamental front as far as the news front goes. We have the election day is tomorrow. I was listening to old streams just to try to like make sure that my communication is appropriate, make sure that I'm saying like too many times now. And in two streams, or it's one stream, I said two things that were incorrect. Someone asked me about my trading experience. I said the 2018 financial crisis. Okay, when I right after I got out of college, it was the 2008 financial crisis. So 2008 financial crisis. I said 2018. And then another thing was, what else did I say? God, I just forgot now. I must be losing my mind. I said something about election day being tomorrow, and that was on Friday. So election day is not on a Saturday. So I was pretty much just talking out of my ass. But tomorrow is election day, and we all know that there's a whole lot of uncertainty around this election leading up. It's been volatile. Election cycle is always going to be like that, period. But this one we know is just hyper volatile. So, I know some people that are not in position at all right now. They're waiting for the results to settle and for there to be some, for there to be a decision made, right? And then you have people that are positioning pre-decision. You have someone, I think yesterday or maybe it was 2 days ago, who bought a ridiculous amount of calls on the S&P, right? I think it was a $300 million bet, directional play, it seems. So, they're betting, I guess, on markets really rallying. And you have to think that they're betting on Trump winning, obviously, right? At this point, guys, let me just tell you how I feel, because sometimes I say something on Twitter that a lot of the times it's to rile people up, it's to get a reaction. But I just want it to be over with, right? I want the United States to be in a good position. I want our standing in the rest of the world to be in a place of where we're respected and where we're a leader still. And, it feels like things have gotten a little messy at the dinner table. And it's sad, right? When we have this kind of divide, it divides people on things and on premises that are kind of silly, right? We should be able to get along, and then, you should be able to get along with someone, and it shouldn't be based on their political beliefs. And now you see a lot of people are just reduced to that. And I want people to be in a good condition financially, health-wise. So may the best man win, and may the person who win understand the responsibility that's on their shoulders to try to ensure that safe passage. Okay, and that's that. Okay, so one thing I said was in this stream I wanted to go over my setup, what I look at, and hopefully you guys can benefit from this, and hopefully you can do some exploring yourself and see what benefits you, right? That's more tailored to maybe something you're interested in. For those of you that know, I trade. Let me see. Then you have to vote your dear leader out. Yeah, no, I'm not going to get into it, but it is what it is. So as far as my setup goes, okay, so the first thing that I look at, and for you guys who want access to something like this, the first thing that I look at are higher time frame levels. So if I'm looking at, let me get this, so it's set up so I could interchange between. I'll just use. Here we go. That's what we're talking about. We'll use Alt Tab. I think Loma was the one who told me how to do that. So what we're looking at. So first things first, when I look at structure, so we'll do a market up. We'll do a quick overview first, because this is going to just do the top-down approach either way. So looking at higher time frame market structure, I'm going to get rid of the volume. It just bothers me. So looking at higher time frame structure right now, that monthly level. This monthly level is very significant. Going back to, it's not only the highest monthly close back here, but this is the highest monthly movement in 2019, or highest point within 2019, highest monthly close. Okay, so that number is right around 863, depending on. Oh, okay, Naman. Sorry, man, didn't realize that. So this is 13,863. That is on Coinbase. That could change depending on what exchange you're looking at. But this level is very significant, right? We've managed to close right at that level. Now, a monthly candle is going to, if you can't look at a monthly candle like this and say, oh, we've closed right at the level, or we closed above it, and then now it's just kind of, foot on the gas pedal long-wise. Monthly candles take a month to play out. So I'm more concerned with, how our initial price action is following the close, maybe for short-term trades. But once that close is in, I'm going down to the lower time frames either way to pay attention to, the significant strength that we see or weakness we see around that area on those lower time frames under the monthly level. So I'm still going down to the weekly and the daily level to really confirm anything. What I would say right now, I hate that I say sometimes. It's like I'm parsing I'm slowing down my sentences. And then I go, oh my God. So this monthly close right now, we haven't had a really decisive kickback. We've had a decisive kickback back here. This goes back to 2019. There's been really no strong sign by sellers. So it's not price that matters, it's inventory. And you're approaching an area right now that has previously served to reject price in a pretty extreme manner, right? You had a blow off top back here. And at this point, we're able to just walk on up to it. We're basically just moseying on up to this level and cuddling up against it. So it doesn't look like we have found that supply yet. It doesn't look like we have walked into any kind of serious resistance. This is an area where I was talking about maybe price potentially ranging either way. There is sort of an uncanny similarity between how these structures have transpired, right? You get a big impulsive move outside of previous consolidation, second leg up, and then you get a pretty decent sell-off. And this establishes your higher time frame range that you're going to spend most of your time within. So you get that big impulsive move through a previous important contextual level, you get a second follow through, and then you get the big dump. So this structure is similar, right? You get the big impulsive move through a significant level, you get a brief consolidation, you get a second pump, and you get a dump. I think that this very well could be in a similar position to where we see back here, where this dump is not as deep because you're in different conditions now that you've exceeded all these previous important higher time frame structural levels. So now we have the market that is much more bullish. You'd have to imagine, why did you get larger dumps down here? And then it's larger than this, but it's slightly smaller than this. As the market is moving up, people are becoming a little bit more bullish, right? They're becoming less hesitant to buy the dip. So at higher time frame resistance, you get a much deeper pullback. Right? You have people that are really scared to hold on to any position, and you get this very knee-jerk effect of market selling off in a much more volatile and violent fashion. Once you start breaking levels to the upside, context has been somewhat flipped, right? Or where we sit in relation to these important contextual levels has obviously changed. We're sitting in a more bullish position. So if anything, what I'm saying is that there is a pattern maybe that's at play. Right, you have an important level, blow through the level. I have to keep these drawings somewhat accurate because otherwise, what's the point of drawing? You blow through an important level, you have a second leg up, you have a deep pullback. You had that again up here, you had a consolidation. Now, we've blown through all the important levels, okay? And you get a lot of people that are looking to buy the first dip. So you can imagine that if there was any location within structure where maybe the dip would be muted, or the dip would be, it would essentially dip in a bit more of a shallow fashion rather than give us this deep probe, it would be after the market has been, in this case, or rather has passed through all these important levels and now is more primarily in a bullish stance, or is geared more towards the long side. So the dangerous thing about that is it does set us up to a point where longs are going to get crowded. We do anticipate that at some point there will be a pretty deep and violent correction that might be short-lived, but it will be painful for those late participants. And those late participants do count as not just aggressive traders, but the ones that are buying every single dip. At some point, people are going to get run over even if they got passively involved. And I only say that because we talk about this in BlockRoots. We talk about the aggressor getting aggressive in a pocket, right? They get aggressive in an area of market structure that is quickly lost, and they're late participants, so they get punished and the market unwinds. It doesn't mean that if you're not aggressive and you're using passive order flow or passive entry meaning limits, that you can't be on the wrong side of the market. So I think, I was looking at this morning, we're at that monthly level. We haven't been majorly rejected. And if I'm going to take from what we do in market profile, with market profile, what we look for is a sign of a major tail. Okay. So if we're looking at this profile period, this is a combination of periods. We had that tail going back on the 31st. So that's the first time that the market came into what is considered sometimes the other time frame participant. So the higher time frame seller, or the supply in this case. So that's the first case of us having that, but it's not really that significant when you look at the fact that we're walking back into a really important level. So again, looking at previous rejections, okay, this previous rejection as sort of a benchmark, we're walking back through that level, and now we're back at this monthly level, and there's been no major response, right? The sell-off that we had was, if we're looking at the 30-minute chart, comparing that to the TPO, the sell-off we had was, it was about 1.65%. So nothing tremendous at all. We're talking about 14.1 down to, 13.9. So it was like a $200, $300 sell-off, which by no means is what I'm talking about when we talk about walk into supply and, you see a big kickback. You usually get that $500, $700 candle. And sometimes you get a 1K candle, right? The idea is you just get a much larger response. So looking at this right now, knowing that we are at a significant area and we haven't really found a incredible amount of rejection, I'm looking down at my lower time frame levels. Now, in this type of pattern, so when you have this sort of 1, 2, 3 pattern, let me get rid of these. So we have a 1, 2, 3. More often than not, this on the low time frames, for me, if it's moving upward, I will look for a short-term short opportunity. So when we see that we have 3 impulses up and we're beginning to lose strength at the high. So in this case, I shorted this on one of my accounts. I shared that on the Twitter this morning. That was on a swing account. I've actually since removed that, so it hasn't been a swing. I turned my swing. It should have been a swing position that I left on, and I actually removed it because I actually think that we are at a good location for a bounce. Okay, I just said actually twice in the last 30 seconds. We're at a good location for a bounce. Okay, so we have, looking at this on the daily, so we have this previous consolidation right here. These blue lines are our value area high and value area low for that structure. We have this most recent daily high, another daily high. So we have this upward progression. Yes, we have lost the structure to some degree. So we have violated this previous high. We have violated this low. Okay, we violated that little flip. But we are coming back down to an area where, one, we had this longer, higher time frame consolidation. And then if we look at this structure on the TPO chart and we're compositing these, okay, so we composited the tight range and then we composited sort of this range that has a bit more dispersion. Let me change the ink color because that is not dark enough. I mean, not bright enough. You have this consolidation, have a composite down there, broke from that consolidation, but what we did was ultimately form another wider consolidation. Where we're coming back down now, currently, it's kind of the meat of this structure. So you got the point of control right there. And I wouldn't normally just buy at a previous point of control. Normally, I would wait for us to entertain one of the extremes. But in this case, we have the point of control right here, and you also have the top side of this previous value area. So the top side of that level that is indicated by the blue on my trading view chart, you got the meat of this structure that was the wider range of dispersion that we had right before this move upward to 14.1, 14.2. So there's a good amount of confluence at this level. And again, in the conditions we have right now, I'm anticipating to get front run. So I anticipate that the idea that maybe we have for a deeper pullback, I talked about maybe 12.9 being flushed, and that was, similar to previous structures that we've had. You've had that move up and you had a much deeper flush, right? So you had a consolidation move up, deeper flush, where we took out that initial consolidation. That was something that I'm sort of entertaining as a possibility, but until we deal with this level, I'm not going to just anticipate that this is a given. So while it is possible for us to visit this level, I'm not going to say that it's a given because right now the market is very bullish, and again, people are in sort of buy the dip mode. So holding a swing through this level I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think that we could very well see a bounce at this level because again, this is it's a decent pullback, and it is at an important area within market structure. And you could go back to see that this blue line right here, that's my value area high, and this sort of 13.3, 13.2 level, if we go back to where that's from, that's just the first initial high breaking through this important level. So back through that daily highest close in 2019. So I think that's significant because throughout the structure that followed, this more or less acted as resistance. So you had this fake out to the upside, came back down, retested that, and then that was a level we nuked through. You can see we've treated this area as support previously, and I anticipate that this will chop around and form a range. So this is not necessarily a bad thing that we've revisited this level, coming back down to it. we have any questions so far? The stock markets are up and about to open. This can't be bad. No, that cannot. That's not necessarily a bad thing. So let me just cover this real quick, and I think that you could very well see. Let me just finish this off. I think you could very well see something like this around here, where you put in this low, okay, move sideways temporarily, maybe spike down here again, and then we base out before ultimately revisiting, let's say this 13,650 level, right? This little line in the sand right here. So that specifically is 13,640. But I think you get a return back towards this high. I don't know if this is going to just make a swift move down just yet. You could see the sort of chop and grind in price action with movements to the downside that is showing that it's just kind of, I don't want to say it's controlled, but it looks like controlled selling. And when I say controlled, I don't mean necessarily controlled by the sellers. I mean that buyers are controlling the selling, right? That it is coming down, and it's sort of like, we're catching someone that's jumping down to us, right? There's someone down there that's catching this. I don't know who the hell would catch anybody. I don't know why that example came up, but we're there to sort of break the fall. And it looks like buyers are breaking the fall right now. This thing doesn't look like it's going to get slippery anytime soon. So I anticipate that you'll see some type of maybe sideways action, potential poke down to the low again, and then we'll be back up around 13.6, 13.7. It's entirely possible that this gives you the correction, and then we take out this high again. I don't think, though, that this is going to get slippery to the upside yet. So I'm really happy that we haven't found a serious seller yet, or a serious amount of supply, but I don't think that means that we're just going to continue to move straight upward. So I don't think we're in a position to do this, okay, which is, me just saying I don't think we're in a position for this to just continue like that. I think that either way, if I'm being honest, that, let's say we do correct slightly and this forms a temporary floor right here on this previous range high, this little consolidation high. Let's say that we nuke this high. I think that ultimately leads us with something that comes back down and forms a wider range, right? I don't think that this is just going to start slipping to the upside yet. Okay, so the point that I was talking about during the last video, let me just answer the other question first. I talked about that actually in the last live stream. It was 2 live streams ago. What exchange is their lowest fees for selling crypto to USD? So Josh and I are partners with Phemex, and Phemex has fee-less spot trading. So you could go onto Phemex and not pay any fees to get in and out of spot. All you have to do is sign up for their subscription, and it's like, I think it's $19 a month. So imagine you pay $19 for the entire month, and then you don't have to pay any fees. So that is, in the long run, if you're getting in and out of spot, it's a very obvious deal to take. Okay, so how about the point you were going to make in the last video? Did you remember? Yeah, so the point I was making in the last video, which something that my buddy Kilgore actually reminded me of in a DM shortly thereafter, it's like he read my mind, was the composability of alts on the way down. So Sue was talking about the fact that when alts are moving upward, so when alts are, all alts are moving up together, rising tide sort of situation, everything is correlated, and everyone is willing to accept that things are correlated, right? Everyone is aware of the correlation, and people often take trades based on that overall correlation. If you see that XYZ DeFi pair is going up, and your new DeFi pair is listed and it's starting to climb, a lot of the times you're just playing off of current market sentiment and this bullish this bullish situation that we're in, where again there's a sort of tailwind for every asset that has a sale. So it's funny how when the market begins to turn down, people start to get really, they start to get really biased with regard to their assets somehow being special when the market is moving down and no longer being correlated to the other assets. And imagine that if all the assets are moving up and you're saying, hey, we're getting into XYZ asset because everything is moving up, we're in a rising tide sort of situation. When the market moves down, they're basically saying, oh, no, those are going to correct a lot, but my bag is not going to poorly perform as much as those, right? Because, my bag has the great team, my bag has the great white paper, or, great protocol or has this coming out or, this fundamental development. They're really reaching at that point for any reason as to why suddenly that correlation that existed on the way up is not going to exist on the way down, which is backwards in terms of markets, because in markets when there's a violent sell-off or there is an asset class maybe or a sector that's correlated during periods of market drawdowns, you'll see that all correlations typically go to 1. So during extremes, more often than not, all correlations go to 1. And in alts, generally speaking, when the cycle top is in, if you're in an asset where across the board most of the assets have done this, put in parabolic tops, and now they're all the way down here, if your asset is just in a position where it is up here still, right? It doesn't mean that your asset is not going to do this and that this is going to continue to hold strength. It's more than likely that it's just last to drop. And that's all that it means. It's just last to drop. And at this point, I hate to be that negative and I'm laughing about it, but more often than not, you see that they all follow each other, right? The patterns look the same. The parabolic moves, they all result in the same fashion where they pretty much retrace the entirety of the move, which is something that Ari David Paul talked about as well. And once something goes parabolic, and more often than not, is going to correct, I think, like 80 or 90% of that parabolic ascent. So that was the point. People get really protective of their particular bags when things are looking like shit. And that's not the time to marry into your bag, right? That's not the time to tell yourself stories and try to make yourself feel comfortable. It's more than likely that if your asset is not sold off yet, that you've been given a gift and you should take that gift and leave, right? Leave while you still have your shirt on your back. All right, so let's look at traditional markets because the market's just opened. See more questions. PayPal reports earnings today. We'll be interested to see if they bring up Bitcoin. Yeah, I don't know. That's brand new. What do you think going around above there's no open value? So Adrian, good point. So above us, there is no price history, really. There's no price memory. There's no order flow memory. There is no volume. That's what I'm saying. So if we just look at, something like the fixed range for this entire area, so you could see that it's a light shade above this level. Now, there's, of course, some activity that was up here. And, of course, there's nothing that we were barely up there at all, right? We spent just a few weeks up there. So, of course, there's going to be no activity. Does it mean that we're just going to rip through that? I think that what that means is that there's, the way you could look at it is there's likely not a lot of resting liquidity up there from previous open orders, right? So from previous transactions going back all the way to 2017 and 2018. Sometimes on the book you'll see that if I'm, say, trying to get filled for, consider it like this, if this is a higher time frame structure and I'm trying to get filled for a longer term position trade, let's say that this is the initial low that price puts in, I'll leave dormant orders down there to get filled over time. So price can chop around for months, and I'll leave some type of good till cancel order down here, and I expect maybe a longer range and not necessarily a major change in the structure, but for it to sort of revisit here multiple times, I'll leave orders down there, right? It's just resting liquidity, and that would be for me assuming that overall price is going to continue upward. I'm looking to average in, or I'm looking to get in at good locations, and I'll leave those orders on. The opposite of that would be saying, like, people are who shorted the top have left orders up there, and there's going to still be resistance up there. I don't think you're going to get a lot of people selling up here, because I think that it's more or less ingrained in the minds of most that, or the minds of many, that as we approach this level, it's just looking a lot like previous cycles where we've just gone on to put in an incredible bullish trend, incredible bullish bull market. So I think that it's a combination of psychology and the fact that we haven't had any real activity up here that's going to sit around or is sitting around right now. You could also say what would contribute to that selling pressure that would be from previous orders. So again, just keeping this with regard to actual flow that took place up here. If you're looking at this amount of volume up here and you imagine that some people did get long up there, if prices to approach this level, maybe they want to get flat, maybe they want to get out at break even. I doubt that they're still in though, right? So yeah, I think that the more that we move up within this level, I think that it's already in now. I think that we're going to correct somewhat, but I think that we have passed all the really significant levels and we're on our way to the all-time high. Okay. Does having massive hands have a negative effect on your trading? No, it just, it has a effect on fine motor movements with, I guess, with regard to trying to draw things, because I'm bumping into things that are on the desk. Negative Nancy. So let's look at the ES. So really quick, we are in a position, I think, that, and I don't want to get too much in the macro, try to keep these somewhat organized. We are in a position where I think we're going to see negative real rates in the coming year, in the coming years. And, if you think about, well, just what are negative real rates? Your rate of inflation, okay, for example, something like TIPS, right? Treasury, inflation protected securities. They are something that should change with inflation, and a lot of that is going to be based on the consumer price index. At this point, things like bonds, things that were supposed to be stores of value, they were supposed to protect against inflation, or at least exceed the rate of inflation, are now underperforming, right? So you have negative real rates in the making where the rate of inflation is going to be greater than this yield. And if you don't put your money in things where there is yield, you're going to be losing money every single year, right? Losing money by the second. So things like equities are always going to go up, I think, in this situation. Stores of value like gold going to go up. And I think if you see a bond exodus, or if you see somewhat of a bond exodus, I don't think we're going to see a bond exodus. But I think that something like Bitcoin benefits from that as well. So we're in an environment right now where I don't think that equities are going to fall off they're just going to fall off a ledge. I think that it's, absolutely normal for us to correct. I think there's a whole lot of uncertainty right now, but I think that 6 months from now, regardless of who the president is, BTC is back up at 13.5. I think that 6 months from now, a year from now, I think the S&P is higher, Bitcoin's higher, gold is higher. And it doesn't matter who's the president at that point. It's a function of the fact that people have to get in something that has yield. And the S&P is sort of engineered to go up, right? It's a story of survivorship, right? There's no, if you're a dead company, you're not going to stay in the S&P. So as far as equities go, a lot of uncertainty around this period, but I anticipate that in the next 6 months, it's going to be higher either way. So I'm not too worried. You get a lot of people that because of the correlation that exists right now, they're looking at equities, they're looking at the S&P, and they are just kind of doomsaying. I don't think we have a lot to worry about. Okay, so as far as, let's see, theta. Yeah, let's look at some charts, and then at the end I'll go over my setup, what I look at. So let's look at this on the lower time frame right now. So for example, we have a setup where we do have maybe this under over that's in play. So we have the swing. Now we're back above this sort of swing point right here. All right, so looking for maybe support to develop in this area for play back to that 1360. So this could be setting up a nice little long scalp up to the underside of this range. I think that, this morning, depending on when you catch a post, I could be in a completely different situation. But since this stopped getting slippery, right, since this stopped getting slippery down here, I think that it's very well that we're just going to come back up and test that high again. So, okay, any questions? Okay. Theta. Look at theta. Yeah, no, I wouldn't want any part of that. It's sort of like what I was just talking about. Now, I mean, at this point, the last 4 weeks in a decline against BTC, and it's sitting above structure, right? Sitting at, but things like this, you could just mostly put your money on the fact that they're going to come much further down. Get rid of this. It's bothering me. Okay. Let's see. Ocean. We went over this in the last stream. Talked about this being the level to overtake. right? This is pretty clean as far as where higher time frame resistance is. Got a little flip right here. Okay. Yeah, this is you know, same as the last stream. Needs to be above this 38.19 level significantly, you know, putting in a pretty decent move above there. Yeah. Okay, so as far as BTC, and I was just going over this structure on the lower time frame, not in any depth, but the one thing about this also, so I talked about, you know, walking into that monthly level and that being, I think we should have seen a significant response if it was to be taken seriously. So it just reminds me that this is likely to be revisited. Another thing is that you do have this basis on the entire way up, and it's still the case that up into this high, you do have that premium index being negative. And if we look at, let's look at some of the fundings right now. Oh, I didn't want to leave that page. Fuck. They're not negative with the exception to, you know, not negative across the board. OKX, USD, and USDT margin perpetuals, and BitMEX coin margin. So again, I say that for things like Bybit, I'm more interested in this being negative than this. So, you know, just how I distinguish. If I see that, for example, the USD Bybit perpetuals are negative, I'm not taking that as much of a strong signal as I would if it was the coin margin, because these are a little bit more heavily traded. They're more liquid. This is harder to keep in line. But BitMEX being negative, that is still a really good signal. Still a really good signal. And again, these might not be negative across the board, but they're all relatively neutral. So neutral as price is moving up, neutral to slightly negative. It's just saying more that this is a lot of, it's very much spot driven. So it's very much spot driven. We're not in a position yet where any kind of derivatives traders are getting really overexposed or potentially offside. And when you have that, you would normally look for that to unwind, right? For the market to sort of take a breather. But it just seems that as we're moving up, whoever is trading, you know, futures at this point is still betting more heavily that this corrects than continues. And I don't think there are any cases where price has gone on to correct majorly during periods like this. So instead, you know, price might pull back where we're talking about a correct versus a deep pullback. I think that what you can anticipate is, you know, something that like this could happen where you chop around. But with this still negative, and that would probably continue to get even more negative at that point, you're just setting up for the next big move upward, right? You're setting up for the next big move. And this has sort of been the case for the entirety of the structure, where you've had, you know, price makes a big move upward. As it moves sideways, most of the time that premium index is negative. Basis is such that spot is stronger than the derivatives. Spot is trading at a premium. Same thing here. Price moves up. Oh, look at this high right here. That was with a positive premium index. This is the time where funding was a little bit more positive. Market sells off, and again, we find ourselves in a position where it is mostly negative, and we move up. So I am concerned for a top. I would be more willing to call a more serious top, or, you know, what, an interim top, right, longer term top, when we do have signs that we are, you know, trading more so that when futures are trading more so at a premium than a discount to the spot. We haven't had that since this entire move. I think that as we're breaking through these key levels is becoming more spot driven, and this market right now, this entire structure going back all the way to March was very spot driven. So I think that as we break through these key levels, what you're seeing, why it's continuing to be more and more spot driven, is that you are getting people that are buying this for the first time, that are, you know, buying more spot Bitcoin, that are anticipating, you know, the bull market to take off. And November is historically one of the best performing months going back to Bitcoin's entire history. Yeah, that's just the BitMEX basis, Don. Yeah, but you could look at, so I actually got the BitMEX basis is still reliable. That was the point that I was making earlier. because BitMEX has not exactly fallen off the leaderboard in terms of liquidity. So it's not that BitMEX would suddenly have a more extreme basis. So if we go to something like spreads, we'll just go to liquidity, excuse me. You could still see that BitMEX, in terms of bid-ask spread by 5 million, right? BitMEX is still number 2. So BitMEX spread is 17 basis points and Binance is number 1. And then if you go down to near price spread, the closest to, which is, Bybit is in the lead right now, BitMEX is still right there. So the fact that BitMEX is liquid still, and also if we look at futures, BitMEX has not exactly fallen off in terms of becoming irrelevant. Irrelevant for futures, I would say, is something like Derbit, right? CoinFlex, Kraken, all these are completely irrelevant. BitMEX it hasn't completely fallen off, and I still think that you probably do have a good amount of heavy hitters on that exchange that are not leaving and are getting KYC'd, and the fact that they're still present there means that BitMEX is not going anywhere. I think that people are quick to share negative news, with what was shared 2 days ago as far as them cashing out or whatever the story was. I think they're just doing a lateral pivot to 100X, the company that they were starting, and I don't think they'll be part of anymore. But in terms of basis, if we go to OKX even, this might not show it. Where's our basis? Well, basis right here, rolling basis collapsing. That's fine, but I want to find, maybe it's on this. I think the basis chart was there. This is BitMEX Coinbase basis, obviously still negative. I got to go to OKX to OKX's website to find this. You do the same with, you don't have to do any of this. You could just look at, for example, XBT right now. We're looking at XBT, and then we'll go to, one sec. Got to get these in order. Okay, we have Bybit. This should be Bybit, 471. Bitstamp, 480. Coinbase, 488. All right, so futures are trading across the board. They're trading at a discount to spot. So I refer to the BitMEX one because it still is relevant. You're going to see that the market's all there's really, although there's exchange fragmentation, you're not going to find that one exchange does something that the other really doesn't. You might find that right now, if you're an order flow trader and you're trying to suddenly start using an exchange like, if the whole BitMEX thing scared you away from BitMEX or looking at BitMEX data, you go to something like Binance Futures, and you're like, this is a weird, what's going on with the CVD? Bybit is a little bit more accurate now, a little bit more in line with BitMEX, and definitely has captured most of the open interest. But BitMEX is still, as far as being actionable, it's still very much actionable. Okay. So what is that indicator you're using showing premiums for spot? Well, I'm on SKU right now, so I signed up for a free membership on SKU because I was a SKU member, and then they changed their entire. I see what they did. They paywalled the entire thing, and it's $700 a month now to have access to SKU, which is kind of ridiculous because it's not that incredible. It's got some good information, but crypto, you could do a Google search and find all of this. Maybe separately, it's not curated in one place, but this is not exactly secretive alpha. Okay, 12.9 first or 13.6? I think 13.6. When I shared the idea with 12.9, or I just shared the post this morning talking about 12.9, that kind of thing is something that I would anticipate to happen a lot sooner, where that was during this, and I was expecting maybe a flush. So just for this to continue to speed up, flush, and then recover. The fact that we're just nicely finding support right here, and it looks like it's in control, makes me think that this is still going to press further upward before we have any kind of larger correction. And if you just look at this structure where it's found this little flip, right? Highs, right? High, move up, consolidate, break up, retest the same area. It's loose, but It is it's acting as support. ETH BTC, yeah. But why is the futures curve so different? Oh, looking at BitMEX futures, let's look at that. I mean, you have BitMEX. So in terms of futures, let's look at where's BitMEX? Yeah, it's pretty flat. It's pretty flat. This is definitely pretty flat. Maybe. Okay, so this is interesting. BitMEX futures curve is flat. All right. Maybe that's because I hate to postulate as to what that is, but maybe that's because there are people that were in longer term futures positions because so these positions, and this is just a theory. So these positions, they don't have any funding, right? There's no interest rate component. And these are good for longer term positions. Perpetual swaps, not something you want to hold. Maybe we're seeing the compression of the futures term structure on BitMEX because a lot of the people that maybe were worried or maybe were in those positions and are maybe uncertain about BitMEX's future, they have unwinded their longer term exposure on BitMEX in terms of futures and taken that to, maybe to Deribit, OKX, or Binance. So we did see a lot of open interest leave. So maybe BitMEX is better just for front month, so perpetual swap, right? You consider that front month. But maybe that's why we're seeing the compression. Because other than that, there's really no major explanation for that. It could be that it also could be that since this has lost a good amount of participants, that these are a lot less liquid. So first of all, the linear futures are not going to be as liquid as the perpetual swaps, period. There's not as many traders, not as many people interested in them as a product. So the same thing as the CME futures, as you go further out in the CME contracts, there's barely any volume, so you could move the market that much more. So that could be why that is. I don't think that this is meaningful as far as predictive, because all of these are relatively in line in terms of contango. Okay. ETH BTC. Yeah, this is the next area of support is right around here. So this is where we would start paying attention. I'm not 100% certain that this holds, but I got in a long scalp yesterday on ETH just because of this and Wi-Fi, which I since closed out. But this technically should act as support. I would more so expect that in any kind of further consolidation that we see a dip between this level. So we see a dip more so down here or more towards this level through here. So between 27,619 and 26,204. Considering the amount of movement that we had down to this low, I don't think that it'll just be a one and done, but we'll see. I mean, it's also starting to look a little bit more controlled down here as well. ETH USD is telling a little bit more of more of a bearish story. I think I was talking about this the other day, how this was a bearish throwback, and it should have treated the top side of this as support. So we had it as support, we lost it. Again, bearish engulfing today. I think with ETH, we're going to see lower prices in the near future. I think that you probably see, if I was going to guess, right around 370, 360. And we'll look for some sort of strength over there. If you lose 350, that weekly level, so that's a weekly level right there. I think that you could see anywhere down to, 300 to... Yeah, I mean, you could fall considerably. So what I would say with ETH BTC though, because I went over this in the yeah, no, Stan, I think you had the right line of thinking. I mean, if I'm just trying to guess why it would be that way. I think it might be a function of illiquidity. Could be that those positions were unwound, so that a lot of that upward pressure has been relieved. Could be a few things, but yeah. So as far as ETH BTC, and DeFi. So I mentioned this in the newsletter yesterday. Looking at, for DeFi, something to look at is the DeFi perp. I would say the DeFi perp, Uniswap perps, ETH BTC, and Bitcoin dominance. So as far as ETH BTC goes, and for those of you that are maybe interested in DeFi pairs, I would look for all these three to start turning. So ETH BTC, so let's say that ETH BTC, hypothetically, ETH BTC starts to find a base around here, and we get something maybe along the lines of this. Okay, we get some type of reclaim of structure. If we get that, and we get something like Uniswap, which is starting to show a little bit of a loss of momentum to the downside, right? If you were going to put an RSI on this, you would see it probably is it has a divergence right now. Why did I just clicked it twice? So you're seeing a divergence, right? So blower low. Okay, excuse me. 1 low, 2 low, 3 low, and then you're having this upward sloping. More importantly, just right here, right here, right here, and right here. If I go on to the 4 hour, it's probably a bit more pronounced. So I don't use the RSI, but I was just showing you that you could see this with your eye, right? Price is making, it's still making, it's trending downward, but you could see that each successive move is becoming less and less intense. So it leaves you with this RSI that was oversold and now has risen over time. So if you start to see that the Uniswap index is basing out, something like this maybe, so more recent flip. So even if you extend this going back, so support, support, now retest failure. If we're back above something like this, all right, so Uniswap index perp like that, and then you go to something like, let's go to, what was the next one? DeFi perp, which is showing a little bit more weakness. Could find support down here, but if you have something like this, right, with the DeFi perp, something like that. Okay, so sign of strength on DeFi. Paying attention to Bitcoin dominance. So if we have, I don't know why the hell it's not on the chart right now. If you see Bitcoin dominance begin to drop, right, as those things are occurring. So as the Uniswap perp is finding a floor, maybe shifting in terms of lower time frame market structure, as the DeFi perp is beginning to find a floor, shift in terms of market structure, and you see lastly that ETH has put in maybe a base, right? So even if ETH is moving sideways, that might be a good signal overall that you can get into some of your DeFi specific pair swings. So I would say I'm going to be playing Wi-Fi at that point. So if we see that Uniswap begins to base out, so Uniswap does something like this, all right, if we see that EPT starts to base out and we start to see that Bitcoin dominance drops off, right, DeFi perp base is out, then I'll look to play, take a play in Wi-Fi. So yesterday's Wi-Fi play was only based on lower time frame price action. So we had this swing low, started to base out slightly higher into this low. We had less volume. All right, so I just actually got long right here, and I sold at around, I think I got long at 10,000, maybe it was 4 something, and got out at 10,850. So, but I would say to pay attention to those pairs and take a higher beta play on something like Wi-Fi. Link. Let's go to link. Just want to get the most, okay. Yeah. So things that stand out, right? So far, clean this up first. I wish the trading view drawing tools were a little bit easier for me to use. I guess they're not. It's not that they're not easy, but I use the screen drawing tools, and then I'll forget that if I move this now, it's not gonna stick. Upward ascent right here, right? Flip this important level that's right around, we got $10.80. I definitely would want this level to hold for Link. I think that in the past we've had structures that have gone on like this and have ripped upward, right? After basing out, but I really wouldn't want to lose more recent low. So I think that you could actually get away with saying that this 1080 level is still very significant. So this pivot right here. So you can see we came into that area left impulsively, but now we're sort of grinding against it again. I think that Link, my idea with Link was not, I got into spot Link anticipating that it would be a nice spot play up to 15, and that 15 is that weekly level up here. But I don't know, I might consider peeling this off. I got a good fill, so it wouldn't be painful. But I think that Link very well could be something that, because this is extended, right? It's very extended. Link could very well put in a longer term correction, right? This is a really big move, and it led the market. Link did this before everyone else did their thing. Kava. So when we shared the newsletter, the original newsletter, the first one or two, Kava was one of our best plays. And the idea with Kava was breaking through this previous range. The idea with Kava was finding support in this previous range. So, we play ranges such that when you lose the range and we're reaccepted within the range, we're looking for at least the range high. Kava went on to more than exceed that, right? It blew through the range high, treated that as support, and continued to trend up tremendously. So now reapproaching the top side of this range, I think that there is definitely a long play off of that. So I would say I'm going to use the right drawing tools this time. So I would say support anywhere for Kava in this location, right? Top sides of these wicks, this weekly level, look for some sort of base to form down here. But that, does that just bring us to this more recent support, right? So let's say we do something like this. If we're longing this, does that just bring us to 180? Or is Kava going to continue to outperform? This is a new asset though, so I would look for a longer term play off of this level. So between these levels, I'm trying to make these X's look good. Between these levels, so between 119 and 141 for maybe a longer term swing. Yeah, I think downside for Link is absolutely possible. I was calling for Link at $5, so I kind of changed my tune when it started showing strength. But so if you just look at Link right now on the weekly, so look at this weekly cluster. All right, this is the cluster that you're using to say is bullish, right? You found demand down here at this previous weekly level right here, this little cluster that we have. A bad thing would be to gain acceptance back within this cluster, right? After moving to the upside, then you're looking at something like this. So yeah, I think that you want to stay out of this level. So we want to stay out of below 1080, right? Once you gain acceptance into this prior consolidation, it just becomes more likely that you at least come back down and test that other area of support that it was acting as support down here. So you're looking at that point, you're looking at, you lose 1080 and you come down to, I'd say, at least 920, and then you're coming down to probably $7 again. All right. KSM. And right now, I would say if you're looking for alt plays, you want to see what outperforms BTC. So you want to be looking at a BTC chart, meaning KSM Bitcoin versus KSM USDT. I don't know a whole lot about this, but we're just looking at our more recent weekly levels and daily levels that we'd have to overtake right here, right? 2478 sats initially. So this is the area that you need to overtake to be bullish, right? To be at least somewhat bullish in the short term. The idea is this was support. Okay, price impulsed back up into support. All right, and then completely retraced. So this is your fake out. This is where a lot of people get long, right? Because they think that this is the reversal. And that means that now if you're back above here, This area didn't do its job. And then at that point, yes, you could look at higher prices, but I think that ultimately you need to be back below or back above, this 2478, even 2573. You just want to see that support has been gained back above this level to really start bringing in, building a case for higher prices at this point. This just reminds me of the type of moves that you see when a bear market is beginning, though, for alts or DeFi pairs, where you do have, after you have a big move up, on the moves down, you get these big spikes and everyone gets bullish, and then they drift away. They drift. You get a bounce break, big spike, then they just kind of melt away, just drifts down, and completely retraces the spike. So let's see. Do you ever work with Ichimoku Cloud? No, I don't. But I know people that do, and they've been using it forever, and it's a really good tool. I don't use it myself. But I know people who use the Ichimoku and find a tremendous amount of success with it. Room BTC looks good on the H4. Let's look at the weekly first. I mean, it's kind of a big move down for the weekly. As far as this, regardless of what it looks like on the H4, these levels are your most significant levels. All right. So H4. Yeah, I don't know if that looks good on the H4. You need to be back above this pivot right here. And this is the first start of the lowest point on that daily structure. So I don't think there's any sign yet that this looks good. I mean, that's why I go by higher time frames with alts first, just as a tool to filter them, because it saves me from wasting my time, rather than try to look on the lower time frames and find the case where this could be strong or what level would offer a good maybe short-term trade. I just would rather see that I'm not going to be looking at. So if I'm scanning through charts, and if we're in this case, let's say this chart looked like something like this, where this was your daily level. And now prices, I'm scanning the charts and now price is back above here. Then I'll add this to a watch list and consider taking a play in it. But until then, this sort of criteria, not being back above this daily level or lowest point before this recent loss, is enough for me to just scan right over it. Yeah, we have BlockRoots.com, which is just an online platform with a ton of videos. It's not like a group. It has a Discord, and we have a newsletter and all that stuff. We don't advertise it too much. We don't like to we don't like to advertise it. Don't want to be those people. If you're interested, you're interested. Maybe we need to do a better job of advertising. Okay, so DOT 2 is something that I was happy with and then has now completely lost structure. So weekly levels, daily levels. I don't know. This could be moving within a higher time frame range, but DOT is the same thing, right? We don't want to marry into anything because it looks good right now, because it very well could go on to look really ugly soon. So if DOT loses this structure down here, 374 area, then you're probably coming down to around, $3. That being said, if we're back above 450, which was my initial level, and this is your fake out, well, then if you're back above 450, then you're probably looking at least 550 and above. So this area right here, we have this little flip. Okay. And let's see, what else we got, guys? Any other questions? Bitcoin, let's look back at Bitcoin. Decent so far, but I think the ES is moving up, right? So you have good response by the ES. Dollar moving up too, which is funny, right? Suddenly this correlation is not as important. But as far as the ES, I think that as long as the ES moves up still, and I think it will, Bitcoin is going to follow that. It seems to be that recently if the ES moves down, it's not necessarily the case that Bitcoin follows it down though. So I think things are looking good. On the low time frame though, I would want to see for any kind of short-term trade, since I didn't get in it during the stream, at the support. I think that if you're building support above this swing, right? So if we look down at this on the lower time frames, support above this 13,450 level, it's not looking good right here. You're already starting to find a little bit of pressure, but if we start to base out in this general area, then I would expect that, yeah, we'll probably come up and test this 13,650 level, 13,45, 13,645. But what I was drawing earlier was something that I think is a bit more likely, which is you could move sideways here, poke back down to this low, and put in a longer term bottoming structure here. Longer term, I just mean, you know, hourly chart, longer term structure, right? Then what we're looking at on the 15-minute chart. Okay. Smash. YouTube isn't showing video in subscriptions. Okay. Centivate. Share this when it goes back down to the low. Any other questions, guys? I think I'm going to save the I'll save Wednesday's update entirely for how to set up a trading setup, because again, we're like an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and a half into the stream, it looks like, and we've gone over a bunch of charts, and I want to keep these things as clear as possible versus adding too many things. Trading contest review, nothing really to talk about yet. I mean, let's get out of the swing account. I haven't taken a trade on this account in a while. And I say a while, I mean, I think it's been like a day or two. BlockRoots is ranked number 7, though, out of how many teams we have? 28? We could do better. AVA BTC. Decent looking chart. That's the kind of, well, I mean, this week's just beginning, so the volume's low for that reason. But this is the kind of volume you want to see at a bottom, right? I would just be careful, because this is how we would want to, this is not what you would want to buy. You want to see that it starts to base out from here. So let's, I mean, you have throwback over previous structure for this drift down, low volume drift down, big volume up. I would need days to build after this. You know, I couldn't look at this right now and say that it's worth buying. I don't know what's going on, why it's pumping, but I would need some type of longer term structure to form down here. Yeah, in Wednesday's video, we'll specifically go over trading setup. Just because I feel like I start the video and I get into a bunch of stuff, and then I don't want to sacrifice the content and just expedite the process. But BTC is not, you know, it's putting in a pullback, but I wouldn't say to be overly worried about it at all. You have that basis, you have local areas acting as support, right? It's not like, one thing to pay attention to is when things shift is when levels get just nuked through. This just rolled up here, right? It's not like price made a high and then we nuked these levels on the way down, and we're in a position where it's kind of unstable ground. It looks very controlled right now. Looks very controlled. I don't know where Sunny, I don't know who Sunny Decrees, where Sunny Decrees team is ranked. Let's see. Oh, he's 12. Yeah, he's 12. Yeah, I use Sierra for market profile. Sierra, I mean, on Wednesday, that's what we're gonna go over. We're gonna go over my trading setup, how you could help how I can help you set up yours. You know, things that I look at that are not just on Sierra. Yeah. I just looked at AVA, Tommy. There's nothing to say about it yet. It has a pump. And this is where people buy, and then it retraces the entire thing. So this is whoever got in position, that's good, right? Whoever was in this is fine, but this right now is, it could just very well be this in the making. So you need more structure to form. You can't just look at this and say that it's pumping and that there's anything good about it, right? I mean, what are we going to do? Look at it flagging on a 5-minute and try to get involved there? No, it's forming. There's some pressure up here right now, and I would say that we'll come back to this next week and see how it does. But yeah, BTC looks fine. Let's look at good amount of selling pressure into that low, but yeah, and you can see that we're already below the prior low in terms of CVD. Let's change the ink. So it's good. It's good so far, right? Okay, guys. Yeah, we're like an hour and a half into it. We'll on Wednesday we'll go over the trading setup and how you could best set yours up. Go over some of the things that I look at from a top-down approach. So it'll be more instructional on Wednesday versus just going over the charts. Honestly, sometimes the charts are just boring to go over because you go over them and there's not a whole lot to talk about. Alts are still getting kind of squashed. I would say pay attention to the DeFi and Uniperps, right? The indexes, because they represent a basket of assets. Pay attention to that with Bitcoin dominance and ETH BTC to see if there's any strength or maybe case to be made for getting in some of the bigger DeFi plays, such as Wi-Fi. As far as the ES, I think that I wouldn't worry about the ES falling off a cliff. I think there's a lot of volatility in the short term due to the election. I think Bitcoin is going to be moving up with the ES over the next 6 months, and this all just look like noise. What else? Yeah, the first level that we're at right now, just basically the previous range high of this consolidation that we are forming. It's not the value area high, but in this type of environment, you're going to get the response at the first area rather than the deeper area because you're getting people that are looking to buy pullbacks. And that's that, guys. Everyone have a fantastic evening, and I will see you all on Wednesday.